There's different genres, aesthetics. It's not going to be for everyone, but hopefully you find a game that maybe you missed and you'll play now. These are games that aren't going to have huge populations, and debatably, maybe they never really did. These are games that have almost always been under the radar, and especially now, they're sort of like hidden gems. Now, normally I've been doing these videos like every year or every season. I talk about a list kind of like this, like games that just recently shut down, games that nobody plays, or games that just came out, and hey, you didn't know they came out, did you? Well, these are games that have been around, that have always been hidden gems, and they're just becoming more and more buried, but they're still good to go. They're still interesting, especially if you can get some friends to jump in. I think you're gonna have an excellent time. So these are the kind of games that were up and about or just coming out when I started YouTube and I started working for free MMO Station. So these were hyped then, and honestly, they're still got a place in my heart even today. And hopefully now, you too. So let's do it. Top 10 free-to-play games you missed and should probably play. All right, guys, starting out our list, we got to talk about Tor Bash. Now, this is a game that's been around for quite a little bit. I mean, all these games generally have, but Tor Bash was like one of those first just weird freaking free-to-play games that are just like totally free that just is weird. So it's a fighting game, but it's not a fighting game. I actually put this in my top 10 free fighting games list if you guys want to check that out. But Tor Bash is a game where every turn, which happens at the same time with your opponents, you are choosing different body parts and configuring them and moving them so that whenever the turn executes, your character actually does the movements that you programmed the turn before. So really interesting stuff. I mean, you could do some crazy kung fu fighting, or you could just flail around like I generally do. But Tor Bash is just a weird game that you can just jump in. There are still people playing it. You can play with bots or whatever, just kind of practice and play around with. And of course, if you jump in with a friend, I think you're gonna have a hoot and a holler. I think you're gonna be smiling. I don't see how you couldn't. And it's just one of those free-to-play games that just kind of, you know, sort of sunk down into the depths that I want to really shine another spotlight on because it definitely deserves it, and it definitely made me smile. Hopefully it does for you too. Number 9, I'm going to talk about a little game called Little War Game. Now, this was actually probably the first proper RTS that I ever really attempted to play. So Little War Game is based off of basically like a very classic RTS stylings, and it just kind of made a bare bones RTS that's playable in the browser. So this is a browser game, and I've actually talked about this a few times in browser and iOS top 10s, and I'm probably going to keep bringing it back up. They actually used to have weekly tournaments. It was booming and popping. It's died down a little bit, but the game is still as solid as ever, and it's still as cute and is as easy to get into as probably any RTS ever. Again, browser super cute pixel graphics, and it's got all the bare bones skeleton of what you want in an RTS, and I really appreciate it. So if you're looking to get into RTSs, the Little War Game community is the community and the game that you want to definitely check out. So it's a little RTS that I think you might have a little bit of fun with. Number 8 on our list, I'm talking about Tag Pro. Tag Pro is another browser game that was actually probably the first browser game that I played that taught me how serious browser gaming can actually be. So basically, everyone's balls, and you're just running around trying to capture a flag. But when you have the flag, you can get popped by anybody. So it's literally tag. You're playing competitive tag here. But I really like the very subtle little physics interactions of the boosters. You look out for spikes. There's some power-ups, things like that. And it's just like a really simple game of, okay, your balls, and there's momentum, and you're trying not to, you know, get popped. Capture flag. Easy does it. But they actually had tournaments. There was like legitimate streams. This game was actually very serious for back in the day, and I think you still jump in and have a good time. I really appreciated this community. These guys were a lot of fun to play with, and absolutely anytime that I get to shout out this game, I am going to. I don't get many opportunities, but this list is meant for this. So yeah, guys, if you want to just jump in and try some weird free-to-play game that you never heard of, Tag Pro, jump into it. Number 7 on our list is a game so close to my heart. I feel like nobody played this game, and I feel like I'm the only one who had proximity to this game at all, and that's Dragons and Titans. This was coming out during the MOBA boom, which a lot of games came out that I actually really liked. Like Tome Immortal Arena was also another browser, kind of action-y MOBA, but Dragons and Titans is actually especially unique because it has a unique system where you pick and choose half your abilities by choosing a dragon and half your abilities by choosing a weapon. Then it's further unique because it actually has an action RPG, like single-player campaign for free, so you guys have no excuse not playing that. It's very challenging. It's literally plays kind of like challenge levels. I think more MOBAs need to do that. Plus, like graphically, it actually looks really good for what was a browser game, and it uses actual 360 aiming, skill shots all about. It's pretty ridiculous. There's a tremendous amount of challenge to it, and there's a tremendous amount of meat to this game, which I'm really surprised that this really fell under the radar, especially since it was like promoted on Facebook, and it really tried getting its name out there, but hey, maybe I can help out a little bit. Dragons and Titans, you could put it officially in my top 10 favorite MOBAs out there, and you know, actually, its action RPG component is the reason why I still play it. Next, we have another game that was an action MOBA RTS hybrid. That's AirMech. Now, we have actually mentioned AirMech a few times because it has renamed itself a couple of times. It also transferred over to PS4, and I think every so often AirMech does try to republish itself to get more people into it because it's a good freaking game. They want people into it. They want to, you know, have an esports scene. I understand that. They want to really push this game, but it just never really made it, you know, vaulted past the under the radar stage, which is really tragic because it's legitimately good. It's always ran well. It's always had good, I would say, like ideas and concepts. It just hasn't really added too much over the years because it hasn't had much population. It's not as big as League of Legends, can't add that many heroes, and I understand that. But Aramec has mostly stayed the same. They actually did release a single-player variant, which is buy-to-play, sadly, unlike Dragons and Titans. But Aramec is a little bit higher on the list because I think it's just so much more solid, and there's so much more of an attempt to promote it. But then again, this is on a list about games that aren't really promoted that much, so tragically, Aramec definitely needs a little bit of love. It is a full RTS where you play as a single unit that then controls everything else. Kind of reminds me of Tooth and Tail, except much, much faster. So yeah, no, this game is actually ridiculous. This is like the arena shooters of RTSs, legitimate aimed combat, as well as very fast-paced, strategic and tactical gameplay. So Aramec, if you like RTSs and you like MOBAs, this is the MOBA action RTS that just beats out everything else. All right, guys, halfway on our list, we have a game that I actually mentioned all the time when I started working at Free MMO Station. It was on every script for every top 10, basically. Even though I don't consider it an MMO, I was over there, I would read the scripts and everything, and generally, yeah, they would put Drakensang online because it used to be browser-based. I don't think it is anymore, but this is an action RPG that very much follows in line with something more similar with Diablo 3. It's kind of a more cheesier action RPG that definitely has Diablo-like roots. I would probably suggest it for like a fun with friends and family kind of game. It's no Path of Exile. Like, don't get me wrong, Path of Exile totally overshadows this game, and there's a few other action RPGs that you buy into, obviously like Diablo, and we're getting a lot of, early access games, Wolcen, stuff like that. But Drakensang actually was still kind of kicking. It's still on, you can still check it out. Don't be confused if you look on Steam, there are some buy-to-play Drakensangs. You want to go online, get Drakensang online, and I think you can have a pretty interesting time. I think it's a pretty good action RPG to kind of get into. It's going to lack a little bit of bite that a lot of people of the genre want, but at the same time, there's something to be said about the grind, the overall, like, fairness, I think, of the game, it being free to play, it just being something you can jump into, it being something that you can just start to digest. I know the action RPG genre can be hard to get into, so maybe this is the game that is safe enough to actually venture into. But of course, if not, everyone's going to say it in the comments below, Path of Exile is the, overshadowing, the colossus that stands over this game as well. And next up, we have the game that basically gave me the idea for this list. I wanted to talk about sort of patched over free-to-play games like Fistful of Frags here, which I think the gameplay is going to be self-explanatory mostly, but basically Fistful of Frags was a game that it always had a small population. It was always a niche game, and that was kind of the point of it as well. A lot of these games, that is the concept, is the idea for Fistful of Frags is that it was a counterculture sort of creation. It started from a mod, and then it became a default free-to-play game, but basically it was like counter Call of Duty, counter modern arcade FPSs, and I'm not saying this is like a full simulator, but basically it's going to feel like you are in like a Wild West bar shootout. Like, reloads are going to take time. There's a lot of little tiny intricate little shooting mechanics that a lot of people who play Call of Duty or more arcade stuff like that, like Halo, they're not going to quite get. They're not maybe have fun with it, but maybe an older, more nuanced crowd might be able to dive in and sink their teeth into the game. But it is actually light of content. It never really had a giant boom or giant following, but the little community that still plays the game, I think, or you get some friends in, of course, always, you can actually have maybe an experience that's a little bit reminiscent of, like, when you play GoldenEye or something like that, kind of awkward, kind of clunky, but at the same time, that's why you play it. Yeah, Fistful of Frags. Thanks so much, Fistful of Frags, for, the good times. Hopefully we make some more memories, friends and family, and also for basically inspiring me to share this game and others, that kind of followed a similar life cycle. All right, next up on the list, I'm kind of taking a risk here. I'm going to slap down Dragon Nest. This is a game that was probably actually in a lot of people's top 10s when they would talk about MMOs. It's really not an MMO. It's 4 players. You run into dungeons, fully instanced. It's not. It's an action RPG, but in my opinion, it has like the most amount of action. Of course, Warframe competing with that and totally beating it. But in terms of like melee fantasy, tornadoes and magic and stuff like that, kind of like almost like a wuxia style gameplay, depending on the class you're playing. Definitely very warrior style though. You're just going to be sweeping swaths of enemies up into the air, juggling and some little physics interactions with that. I really appreciate the game. Of course, there is sister title, which is bigger in the West, Vindictus, but I need to have a disclaimer. I haven't played it this year, and there seems to be a rampant increase of negative reviews, so I think the game might be broken in the modern era with modern operating systems or something like that. You might not be able to play it on Steam. You might need to go play on the Nexon launcher or something. There is a little bit of dubiousness when it comes to endgame cash shop-y stuff, but in the end, you're going to find a great time, I think, in my opinion, with Dragon Nest. It's so unique. I know the art style is hard to get over as a Western player, but like, it's legitimately very interesting. It has some of the best combat I've ever played in a game like this. I really wish more proper MMOs did this kind of combat. But again, I guess I could say sister title Vindictus is more popular in the West, has actually been overlooked a little bit, so you can play that. I normally put these games together, but I really want to shout out Dragon Nest, because specifically, it's been overlooked in the West. It was really good. I'm really hoping it still works now. I see those reviews, but hey, I'm just going to shout it out. Alright guys, number 2 though, is a game that I played probably too much of, and that's going to be Blacklight Retribution. This was the title that stole my heart, and I actually kind of wanted to play it competitively before I even really cared to play competitive games. Now, I was coming from like Quake and Halo and a few other arena-ish shooters, but Blacklight Retribution really stole my heart because of the customization. So this was fantastic. We just got done playing Call of Duty. You know, like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was really big. Blacklight Retribution wanted to be the free-to-play Call of Duty-like game and basically took the loadout idea and then just went bonkers with it, which was actually probably something of an inspiration for Black Ops whenever that was coming out, to Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3 with that crazy customization. So this was like, yeah, you can actually change around different armor parts, you had different stats, you can move differently, had different armor, even all the way to the gun customization, which I still think is unrivaled in any game, actually, period, with every little bit being able to be customized. And then you had different abilities, you know, you can have like a shield you throw down, you can have invincibility, different melee weapons, all sorts of different kind of gadgets. It was insane. And then it had like mechs. It did have kill streak rewards, which you could actually unlock with a locker system. So as you kill, you get points, you run to a locker, spawn it, pull it out, you know, the rocket launcher or whatever. A lot of fun stuff, really weird map design. And overall, I like the idea that you can actually see through walls pretty much whenever you wanted. There was a cooldown on it, but this made 1v1s legitimately exciting. And that's why I started getting into guilds, clans. I started getting into the competitive scene. And this is the game that really taught me how to aim in FPSs because there's so many different kinds of ways of aiming, little minute changes you can make with customization. I could go on and on about Blacklight Retribution, but in the end, I think its monetization killed it. A game about customization that made it super grindy to earn that customization, essentially made it pay to win. And I still think it's a really fun game to jump into. I still think it's a really interesting idea and concept. Not many people play it, but like, man, kind of wish some did. I still think it could be fun to jump in. Even if you just play it once, it is a unique experience that you won't get anywhere else. Alright guys, number 1 is gonna be APB Reloaded. And basically, if you like Grand Theft Auto Online, APB Reloaded is kind of like the most distilled version of that you could possibly get. And it's free to play! Actually, in some ways, I prefer it over Grand Theft Auto Online. When I first played this game, I was coming from Xbox 360, Grand Theft Auto 4 Online, where I did some roleplay stuff, and I loved the cops versus robbers game in that. But APB Reloaded basically took that idea and made it like a full game. I'm not sure if you can fully consider it an MMO. I don't know the player count, but it really does feel like it. So you jump into open cities, and there's open dynamic quests that you join, but you're either a like villain or you are a cop, and then you have to do like different objectives and you have to stop each other while also completing the objective. So it feels really interesting. I think it definitely lacks a little bit of PvE, like it's just a PvP game, but in that sense, it feels really freaking good. It is a PvP game with open dynamic questing. And of course, you know, you have your different guns, different loadout customizations, different vehicles that you can take, and being in an open area, there's a lot of different ways and directions you can tackle it. I had so much fun with this. In fact, any sort of Grand Theft Auto Online experience I've had, I have never had a better experience than an APB Reloaded. Now, it's so unknown and unheard of because its launch was garbage. It had a lot of bugs, glitches, it didn't perform that well, and okay, there was a lot of hackers. But it looks like there's always been sort of this resurgence and reloading of the game, and once again, it looks like that they're going to try to republish the game and try to do it right once again, because there's always been this hardcore community of people who have realized that this was actually a really special game. There's other games kind of like it, but there's nothing quite like APB Reloaded. On the surface, okay, it's Grand Theft Auto Online, but when you actually get into the game, you'll know there's definitely something that you missed. And that's why APB Reloaded is my number 1 for a free-to-play game that you should play. But anyways, thanks you, friends and family, for watching my top 10 lists. I love making top 10 lists. I play a lot of games, so it's kind of cool just to rant these out. And by the way, I don't script them, so if they seem a little bit rambly, my bad. But I just talk from the heart of games that I know that I want you guys to, you know, talk about yourselves or try, you know, get some of your own friends and family into these games. These are online multiplayer games, and it's all about sharing experiences. And these are experiences that I think you might have missed. So if there's any game that you think I missed, please let me know in the comments below. And if you did play any of these games, let us know in the comments. Family, that's what this is about. Let us know if it's worth playing, why it is now, why it's not, if there's some dubiousness going on with the game. Of course, you know, it's silent games, but it's all about us as a community.